I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.
This evening's talk title is Outrageous Teaching. Before I go into what I am endeavoring to communicate through that couple of words, outrageous and teaching, let's start with just basic provisional teachings. Life is suffering, the Buddha's teaching. Life is suffering, the cause of desire, the goal of cessation, and the path is train your mind, or Shila Samadhi and Prajna. Those are they're not particularly outrageous, pretty bewildering to someone to first hear the Buddha start out with life is suffering. He didn't say sometimes, part of the time. He said life, suffering, without equivocation. And there's all the other provisional teachings. 3 marks of existence, of suffering, egolessness, and no self, and so on. And they're understandable because they have a very strong structure to them. They have a conceptual structure that you can walk into with your intellect, with your understanding, and begin to get some understanding of it. Although we have book studies here where we go over the same teachings over and over and over, because even though they're presented with concepts and ideas and words and phrases, sometimes what is being pointed out is very difficult to see just as a general teaching. Read a study on it. You can study with us on Wednesday. Not that I'm inviting you to. You do whatever you want. But we study Padmasambhava, or not Padmasambhava, but Dogen Zenji's Shobogenzo. Powerful teaching in which it's just difficult to, even though you hear the words, you hear the phrases, and even though it's translated out of the Japanese, it's difficult to bring that into understanding in such a way that you could actually paraphrase what was just said. Not easy. That's a good way to test if you're understanding something, can you listen to it and then say it in different words? Sometimes I'll even ask a person to paraphrase themselves to get an idea if they understand what they're even asking. So the conventional approach as a general teaching, like we're doing here, is just to lay it out as clearly as one can, as a teacher can, in concepts, ideas, and structures, so that you can get some kind of a handle on it. We're just using words and phrases, which are very, very conceptual. Some forms of teaching, like the koan practice in ancient China and Japan, was meant to disrupt the internal logic of ego that continually tries to protect himself, herself, themselves from being invaded by an understanding that might go beyond their egocentrism, their narcissism, their self-centeredness. Called a koan, koan translates as public case. It just means that something was laid out. This is a public announcement of or a question or a statement. Why did Bodhidharma, the one who brought Buddhism from India to China, why did he come from the West? You'd say, well, to teach Buddhism, of course, but that would be incorrect. You would probably get hit. A little bit outrageous. Of course, down through history, if you read any of that, which I'm sure a lot of you have, Chezan, I've asked him to actually teach about basic Buddhist teachings down through the last number of centuries, and which he's done a good job of. A lot of examples of crazy wisdom, or the teaching that doesn't appear reasonable or logical and seems to confound our beliefs, our opinions, our culture, and our idea of even right up to and including abuse of someone. I hope to address that tonight, and with your help, if you have questions, not yet, questions, and you could help us go into this together, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. I don't know if I can clarify any of that or not. I don't know how clear I am on it. But I may have a little bit more clarity than you do. So it goes on and on to teaching, not only general teaching in books and in lectures and like we're having here, but also face-to-face teaching. Very important part of this. You can't learn Buddhism or a spiritual path from a book. You can be inspired by it, of course, but I don't know if it can handle the, shall we call them stages? I don't really use that too much, but I could say the final understanding in working with consciousness, seeing that this is an illusion. Not about believing this is an illusion. It's about actually seeing it, knowing it yourself. You don't need proof. You don't need someone to come and congratulate you or give you a merit badge, because now you see that the world is unreal. In order to see that, you also have to see that the personhood, the identity is mistaken. There's no one here. The illusion of a self is extremely powerful, and it operates out of hope for something better, or congratulations, or success, fear of something worse, some devastating understanding that you are nobody, and you've not gotten anywhere, and you have no ultimate or relative value. Yes, I did say that, ultimate or relative. Why? It's a concept. There's no such thing as ultimate value. Barely even any understanding of anything that is ultimate, because as soon as you say that, you've actually stopped any understanding of ultimacy. Can't be discussed or talked about, even though there's the attempt to do that. So there can be some outrageous teaching happening in this situation. A very tiny bug. So is this distraction, or is this awareness? What is it? Watching a bug flying around. You find out. So teaching to a group of people, it can show up many different ways. Sometimes I endeavor to teach in that way. You perhaps have seen that happen, or what you think is outrageous, maybe not. And also with individuals, students that are very, very close to me, or very, very close to anyone who presents as a Dharma teacher, a true teacher, someone who teaches out of what they're looking at, not what they're thinking about. I say this over and over again. If you don't see this, you just remember teachings. You can't teach this. You can in a university, or you could teach you may have to begin that way, teaching the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 12 links on the chain of existence, going through all the links and how one hooks to the next. The 6 realms, the 3 realms, and you become exhausted going through all the different concepts. So I'll just start reading the what's that big long tome? Someone's going to help me with that?
Abhidharmakosha.
Abhidharmakosha, is that what it is? You know? Okay. Pardon me when I pick my nose. So you could go ahead and read that, and that would be lots and lots and lots of concepts and ideas. But would it be pointing directly at the nature of reality? No, it might take some time of working with teachers, including the Buddha down through the centuries, have done to say what keeps us from seeing this? There seems to be 3 kinds of dynamic in consciousness that shuts away the perception of reality, to use that fancy word, and that is passion, grasping, blaming, choosing, picking, and choosing, picking and choosing, deciding between this and that, this and that, this and that, as if this is some kind of a real thing where you can get something right and avoid something being wrong. We do it all day long. The other one is aggression, pushing, shoving, killing, murdering. Excuse me. And then, of course, the third one is the simplest and the hardest one to see, because it's just distraction. Or ignoring, just out and out, not looking at what's in front of you, You can experience that sometime when you're listening to someone talk to you, and what they're talking about might be interesting, but what you're thinking about is more interesting. So you're able to actually look right at them and actually think about something else. This is called ignorance. Familiar with that? No. How about you?
Why is that ignorance?
I said so. What's this expression? What is that?
Is everything that comes out of your mouth
Of course.
true?
Of course it's true. Everything that comes out of my mouth is true. But don't believe it. Don't believe it. I wouldn't steal your intelligence away from you or cover it up. Don't believe anything. But yes, everything I say is true. And at the same time, it's completely false. And at the same time, nothing has been said at all. Thank you for indulging me. So what am I saying? I'm saying that conventional, standard, understandable, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 12 Links, passion, aggression, and ignorance, open fear, the truth of suffering, the truth of impermanence, the truth of no self. And then when we start to get into the emptiness teachings, or shunyata, a little bit, because we're kind of running headlong into the thinking process that's saying there is this, there's something here, and there's nothing over here. Goes into the dualistic perception that ego thrives on, right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, including life and death, which is that's the big mystery. That's the big illusion, to think that there's such a thing as a difference between life and death. There's differentiation, of course. But the fundamental differentiation, it just means the body isn't here. The bodies come and go. This body arises every morning and disappears every night, if you haven't noticed. And what takes over? Sometimes called the astral, a dream body. You continually create bodies. And when this body goes to pieces, you'll create another body if your life is what? Unfulfilled. You didn't get what you wanted, desire. So you'll be back here again. Lifetime after lifetime. Is this true? I don't know. It doesn't have to be true. I'm not interested in evidence or proof. If you're going that direction, you might as well just study geography. At least it's more comfortable. Study, what's that other one? Starts with a Z? Zemke? No, zoology. It's about zoos. How about, wait, don't tell me. Xenophobia, fear of Buddhist temples. Not funny? Yes, I'm collecting smiles right now. It's a terrible thing to say. So, these relative teachings are pretty strong, and you can teach directly to someone how to meditate. If they're having difficulty with this or that, there's different teachers teach differently. If you came to me and said, I can't seem to stay awake. My way of saying this, it wasn't 30 years ago. I would be teaching out of what I was taught, not what I was looking at. I would be just repeating what someone taught me or told me. But now you tell me that, and I'll say, fall asleep. Don't presume to control something you don't even understand. And eventually see that there is no such thing as control. That's a concept that is just used by the self-centered ego mind all the time. I don't have control. I've got to get control. You should get control. You should get control of yourself. It's the height of shallowness. So the outrageous part, which I'm sure you were hoping I'd get to, is down through history. Tilopa, to the teacher, to his student Naropa. Outrageous instruction. I think he probably knocked him around quite a bit. Today that would be abuse. The person would be prosecuted probably. Marpa to Milarepa, had him build a house out of stone, which they had in Tibet. They didn't have much lumber. And as soon as he got it done, he said, I didn't want it there, I want it over there. So they had to try, I think there was either 7 of them or 9 of them. Does anyone know? Anyway, he had to keep moving houses around. And what was that, a teaching? I don't know. It looks like it was some kind of a teaching in frustration, in not getting what something is here and having an expectation, and then the teaching person takes that away from you. Set it up and you start to buy into it, and as soon as you buy into it, preconceptions, ideas, judgments, evaluations, expectation, take it away, take it away, take it away. As Trungpa Rinpoche often used, teaching about the guru's function is to insult you, not to be friends with you. Pull the rug out from under you so that you begin to see the nature of relative truth and have some glimpse into the nature of ultimate truth, which is without reference points. Someone who is a close student of whomever, Padmasambhava and Yeshe Sogyal is another example of Guru Rinpoche, who was an outrageous teacher and is known for that crazy wisdom. I can't remember how to say that in Tibetan. Anyone? Crazy wisdom. Something that doesn't make any, it's not logical, doesn't make any sense, because it is about upsetting the structure that provides sustenance and nutrition for ego, the otherness, the belief in success, the belief in failure, the belief, all of that. Not easy. So in this case of this old man, this teacher, if you get really close to me, it's probably going to get more difficult. Those students that are very close to me do not have an easy time of it. Ask any of them. What do I have? 3 of them? 4? Or you can just stay back, as I did with both of my teachers. I kept my distance. Much easier. Much, much easier. But interesting thing, and I can't speak for Padmasambhava or Marpa the translator, or Trungpa Rinpoche for that matter. But it doesn't look like you have any choice. The teaching person doesn't have any choice. They're not operating out of choice any longer. They operate out of what is in front of them. And if you are the student of a teacher who is teaching out of that kind of understanding, if you bring your insanity close to them and you have given them permission to teach you, they're going to mirror that back to you in the form of your own emotion. Good luck on your journey.
Thank you.
Welcome. It can be very, very painful and difficult and challenging, but it can't be. You just have to do it. I have had that experiences with both of my teachers, especially with Coben. Very, very painful to have mirrored back to you your insanity, your craziness, and how you're functioning in such a way that the teaching person doesn't care what you do with it. Oh, they only know that it's choiceless for them to show you what you are, who you are, because they function as a mirror. Outrageous. It's outrageous because you, as a student, as I was as a student, and I still happen to be a student, are kind of outraged. And what's this about? Why am I being treated like this? All I've done is ask a simple question, and suddenly I'm treated as if I've stepped on somebody's foot, or something's wrong with me. I am not going to go into that story right now. I have before. It was painful for years, but the pain wasn't caused by anybody other than my own spiral insanity of constantly looking for a reference point of right and wrong, should be and shouldn't be, who I am, who he is, and what he's trying to do. The only thing that really helped me is to consistently return to the cushion, return to the wall, return to the floor, look at this, practice over and over and over and over. Return to that practice. Don't maintain anything. That doesn't mean you won't, by returning it, you won't have some kind of a feeling that you're doing a kind of maintaining. but it's more being respectful to the fluctuations in consciousness that come and go and come and go. And those are fine. That's the nature of consciousness, is to show up and go back to sleep, and show up and go back to sleep. But ego wants to maintain something, wants to solidify, fixate on something, especially on him or herself or themself in relationship to all the other things that are doing whatever they're doing. Polarity. The teacher who is teaching out of what they're looking at, if they're seeing the truth if it's a true teacher, then when you bring your craziness to that person and you have given that person permission, you can't just come in and say, oh yeah, I give you permission. Go ahead. Because I meet people every day and I can tell in microseconds how much permission I have from that person. And that might not be that they're not telling me that, but I can tell by the way they function. Anything I say, I can tell by the way that person is functioning, not just because I'm so brilliant, might be because I'm so flat. Because the teaching person is no longer analyzing, and no longer using logic or anything, because that only works in a relative way, and it works really well. It won't be long and they'll have anti-gravity machines. They already have things that defy gravity. What do they call those? Hot air balloons. You thought I was going to say rocket ships. No. Let's see if I can see what else you might be thinking. Yes?
Shogobang, when you're functioning as a mirror for people as a teacher,
Yes.
do you have a conceptual understanding of how you are a mirror?
No, I have no idea. I'm totally lost. I'm sometimes stunned that people are so react to what I say or do. They're astonished by how I'm acting quite often. Probably somewhat similar to how Coben might have felt about how I acted. By not seeing what he was pointing at and actually dropping to his feet. And instead of saying, I'd kind of like to be your student, but not really. I was lying to him. I didn't really want to do that. And he saw it, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I could see, he saw it, he knew it, he wasn't buying that crap. So he began by scolding me. And that was enough to stop me, because I knew I'd been caught. I wasn't sure what I'd been caught in, but somehow I knew that I was being seen. Go ahead.
Shogobang, do you see what you were pointing at as you were functioning?
Not really, not at the time, other than I just see I just see that someone is gnarled up in their confusion, and they're not looking at it, and they think it's just the truth. And I think it's fear and war, passion, aggression, ignorance, tied up in a knot called fixation. And it could be showing up as anger, could be showing up as ignorance, could be showing up as passion, or some variation on all those. More?
Shogobang, how
How now, brown cow?
I'll have to return to it.
Beyond bowing. How is it ignorance to be having an attention on your thoughts while listening or looking like listening to the thoughts of another come out in words?
It's just a form of it. You're thinking about what you're going to say, and you're kind of listening to the other person, but you're distracted into what you're going to say about what they're. So you're hearing maybe a little bit of what they're saying. You might be ignoring it so much that you'd have to say, "Could you repeat what you said?" You might have to do that. You might be so distracted. There's nothing wrong with it. We do it all the time. Sometimes we plan what we're going to say before the person's finished their sentence. So that's why I sometimes say, I don't think I've said it lately, but it would make a great slogan for a t-shirt: wait for the period. And that's, the little dot at the end of the sentence, not a comma. Wait for the period. Wait till the person stops their sentence. Then then you'll have some kind of understanding or clarity about what they've just stated. Then anything you respond back to that would have some basic respect for the other person, for the period.
Beyond bowing, I'm just not sure what makes that activity, that scenario, ignorance.
What you were just asking about,
Yeah.
because you've shut away from what's arising. You're ignoring what the person is saying, not receiving. You're ignoring what's receiving, and you're distracting yourself into your own thought patterns, because what you're thinking is more important than what they're saying. Ignorance. Or if you're still not clear, we can go further. Maybe it's your understanding of ignorance. The ignorance is, can show up lots of ways. It can show up just as a simple turning away. It can show up as distraction. Actually have another object, which is what's happening there. Your person is talking to you, being respectful, or wanting to share with you something they're thinking about, and you're thinking about what you're thinking about. You might have caught the first few words that they were going to say and assumed you knew what they were going to say, so you don't really have to listen anymore. Is that still confusing to you? I hope you're not saying I'm wrong. Go ahead.
Beyond bowing,
Smile.
are,
Smile. Go ahead.
is the activity of the three poisons preventing us from putting others before ourselves?
Yes, it's actually, I take it further, it's preventing us from seeing that there are no others. Fundamental understanding is there. This doesn't mean you don't see Michelle sitting here, Rondo there, or see me sitting here, but you realize what it is. You realize it's an illusion. And that you are who you are, your identity is just consciousness only. Has no description, has no identity. This is very temporary. You remember when you put your hair up this morning? You remember that?
Goes this afternoon.
Don't correct me. Go ahead. It was this afternoon. Okay, thanks. Well, I wasn't there, so I don't know. Yeah. That's an illusion. But it's so definite, something we actually do with these illusions. We think these are real. We think these are, we can clap our hands, we can remove them, we can move them back and forth like this or like this. Constantly reinforcing the illusion by just waving and flipping people off and so on. We just reinforce that. But it's fundamentally, a capital F, fundamentally not true. What is fundamentally true? You use a concept, just consciousness only, mind only. Everything else is just arising. This is arising in mind. Mind is not arising in this. This arises in mind. It just has a temporary location behind your eyes. Temporary. More?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
In ASAP, if I go to the sense of sound, but the thoughts show up, am I ignoring the sense of sound?
So ASAP is alternating sense awareness practice, something that I teach to get people to move your awareness from how your body feels to how things look, to how things sound, to how you're thinking, how you're feeling, and all the different other things that can show up in consciousness in the sense fields or in the mind. And the ASAP, I just want to let people know what that is. It's alternating between two of them, like sense of touch and sense of seeing. To actually go back and forth between those gives us a stronger feeling of how consciousness actually can manifest in so many ways with so many different kinds of objects in consciousness. So now back to your question.
If I'm going to the sense of sound, but what's showing up is my thought process, am I ignoring the sense of sound?
Somewhat, probably. You mean you're deliberately going to the sense of sound, but you start thinking about everything? Not exactly, because you're aware that you're doing that. So it's always about awareness. It's never about success. It's never about, oh, I'm I went back and forth between these two, but I didn't go back. I stayed with the thinking process. Still awareness. But looking for results, looking for right and wrong, that's a big Mobius strip. Looks like it's going somewhere, but it's just doubling back on itself. It's the same old track, just different time of day. So no, I would say if I were to comment fundamentally on that, it's just awareness. All these practices are about awareness. They are not about getting somewhere. The only way you could talk about it in the sense of something happening or some kind of progress is less and less covering up what your true nature is. Your Buddha nature is hidden from you. And you're slowly over time through awareness practice, you're covering up less and less, you could say it that way, by not doing anything other than looking at it.
Choosing mind. So what's the distinction between that and ASAP and someone talking to me?
Well, the ASAP is a practice you're doing where you're deliberately alternating between the sense of thinking and the sense of seeing. I'm just picking out a couple, or hearing. And you're doing that, and you're observing what is happening when you do that. Whatever happens is the awareness. It doesn't matter if you suddenly get caught in the thinking and then you realize that you meant to go back to awareness or awareness of hearing, but that didn't happen. That's awareness. It's not failure. It's awareness. Now, if we leave that very definite practice for your question went from there, you asked, what's the difference between that? Ask me that question again, and I'll try to go that direction.
Choosing mind. What's the distinction between that ASAP experience and when somebody's talking to me and I go to
It's the same thing. But it's not the same thing if you're not aware. If you're aware of it, you're aware that you're deliberately, when I say deliberately, you're being triggered to go away from that. There's something that's happening. It's always about awareness. If you realize what this is, you realize you have no control about anything. Not much because there isn't some kind of controlling factor happening, or that there is an illusion that this goes there and this goes there. It's just there's no one there. There's no solid person anywhere. Who you are cannot be, it's not threatened, can't be harmed by anything. But who you think you are might be running scared the rest of your life from things you're afraid of or things you're trying to get to. So this is what this path is about. Let's see the truth ourselves. See it yourself. Don't have to join Buddhism or believe in Buddhism. You may need to be a monk and do everything that is happening here, and you may not. You may need to just watch what moves, but you're probably going to need to slow down because the mind is so speedy, you'll just speed right along until you die. But if you can just slow down, just observe the movement of the mind, it takes a lot of time. It takes hundreds, if not thousands of hours of sitting meditation, in my very, very, very biased opinion, because I've done a few hundred hours.
Shogabine, when I look into a mirror, there's a pretty literal reflection I'm seeing.
Yeah, isn't that nauseating? Go ahead.
When I am looking at you, or whenever I'm interacting with you, what is the
I'm
reflection?
beautiful and you're not. Simply put. What is it you want to know?
What is being reflected back if it's not a literal representation of something?
So you're saying you're there, you're a student of mine, I'm your teacher, and I function with you in a certain way, and you're asking me what's being reflected, or I'm not sure what you're asking me about.
What is the reflection of the teacher? I think sometimes
The reflection is you. It's not the teacher's. There's the function of the teacher may be there in personality or a hair color or the size of his ears or her ears, but that's as far as it goes, or the tone of voice. But you're looking at yourself. You're either looking at yourself in the ultimate sense that you're not separate from anything, or you're looking at yourself in that you're projecting onto things and you're seeing what you think is there, but actually it's your projection. Find out so that you have no doubts. If you have no doubts, you won't be sure of anything. You can't be sure of anything. If you ask me, what do I know? I would have to say, I have no clue about anything. I have no idea how I even do this. And before I came in here, I told Ondo, I'd just as soon stay here and sleep. And she said, I've never seen you do that. I said, yeah, I'm probably not gonna do it right now either. I would like to stay in there and just go back to sleep because I'm quite tired. But I can't help this. It's just choiceless. I don't choose to do this. I didn't even choose to become a monk. I don't know how that happened. Just suddenly I was one. More? Yes.
Wunderbaum, when you say outrageous teaching, is the outrageousness where the teaching is coming from? In other words, we have a chance to see.
It's not outrageous to the outraginator. Yeah, they don't see it one way or another. They don't differentiate. But to the person that's receiving that, oh my gosh, I just was really nice to them and all of a sudden he's being really mean to me. This happens this direction quite a bit. But no, you project onto that. And if you're a student of mine, I'm gonna push you so you project onto it. Because I want you to see what this is. I will not rest. I will not stay in that hojo and sleep. As long as there's one person out here who wants to hear the Dharma, I'm here. Not because I know the Dharma. As I just said, I don't know this. I don't understand this. I just studied it for half a century. And now I don't know a damn thing. It's not a credential. It's just true. It's just true. I'm looking at it. I don't have to read about it, even though I brought this up. I said, well, maybe I want to say something about, you notice how many times I've looked at this. I can't even remember my password. I wanted to say something about Padmasambhava. But I think all I wanted to say about Padmasambhava is he was a crazy wisdom teacher, and he was is credited for bringing the Buddhist teachings to Tibet back in the 9th century or 10th, anyone know? Long time ago.
Wunderbaum, I'm trying to understand the difference between interacting with Sangha and interacting with the teacher, because in both cases, the student is the student. But does the teacher have intention to teach? And the Sangha member does not?
Well, it's very situational. So if you're a Sangha member, then you may have received vows, which you have. You're a monk, so you received vows to save all beings, be with all things, put others before yourself, all the ways. And the teacher can't help but do that. They don't decide between, let's see, should I go for a bike ride or should I put others before myself and do something else? I don't know what that would be, because I can't imagine how you could do anything more than go for a bike ride. So it's not the deciding thing in there just doesn't work in that area. What does work is any situation that comes up, you know exactly. You don't think about it. It's time for a Dharma talk, you come in here and do the Dharma talk. And then if it's time for, just like there's going to be a basic Buddhist teachings, which Chezan has given for a few years now, I've slowly been having other monks come and do that. So that's going to happen again tomorrow night. Who that will be, I don't know. And I won't decide until, I don't know when I'll decide. So I don't really think about it. I don't think, who would be the best? I just don't function that way at all. There is no best. Go ahead.
Wunderbaum, so is that what is outrageous, is that we're seeing consciousness?
The outrageous part is not so much the teacher. The teacher, he, she, or they don't necessarily feel outrageous. They feel really ordinary, probably maybe more ordinary than they ever have in their whole life. They have no axe to grind. They have no war to fight. They are not concerned with what occurs, and not because they're not concerned with what occurs. They're very concerned with what occurs, but that's a way of saying there is no past and no future. So you can't say it any more, what's the word, succinctly than that. There is no, how can you be concerned with something that is just more illusion? The outrageous part is how it appears to the person who's dealing with that. I felt it was outrageous that way I was treated by both Coben and Trunk Rinpoche. But it was at the same time, intellectually, I thought, I know that I've got to do this. I have to do this, especially with Trungpa. That was for your first 10, 12 years of that. More?
Ondabang, is outrageousness always negative?
I don't know. I don't even know the exact definition of it. I wouldn't say necessarily just something outrageous, something that just doesn't fit the conventional expectation of it. It's just outrageous in a totally different direction than we thought it would or should or had the structure, or it didn't look like that was going to happen at all. So this quite often happens with somebody who is functioning as a student teacher. That situation can just be totally outrageous. And if the person has not really given permission, as I did with Coben, I asked for him to ask to be his student, and I was lying to him, and he knew it. I didn't know it. I thought I was being pretty clever. I knew that I did not want another teacher. I had one. But yet I was asking, and what he did was outrageous. Here I am, I'm just asking you for Jukai. I mean, I had a perfect explanation for it. Why wouldn't you just give me the precepts? And how could you're a Buddhist monk? Why wouldn't I'm asking for it? Why wouldn't you give those to me? It seemed outrageous to me that he wouldn't do that. That's because I didn't really mean that, and he knew it. And it took me years. You want to know how many? 10. 10 years of practice, slowly eating away into the presumptions about who this is and what this is. And when that is seen through, there's no occurrence. If there's an occurrence, you have work to do. Nothing occurs. You don't improve or get better. You don't become enlightened. If you think you do, then, I don't know, maybe you do. Maybe I've got it all backward. As I said, I don't know. Further questions in here? Yes, sir.
In Long Valley. Could you say that the teaching is the demonstration of intention?
From the point of view of the teacher, yes, the intention is to save all beings. I'm looking at what I want you to see. So therefore, if I meet you and we might just talk about baseball, which I have no interest in. But if you want to talk about baseball, I talk about baseball. You might have to tell me a few things about it. But if I'm seeing your particular kind of confusion, maybe the only thing I can do that's really going to be helpful to you is to say, sit more, continue to sit, get that body-mind complex to the wall and watch the movement of it, rather than bark at you or make you uneasy or have you go out and build a bunch of houses and tell you to tear them down because they were built in the wrong place, or hit you with my sandal, which is what I think Tilopa did in Europa. It's just a way of talking about it. So yes, intention, the vow. I sometimes say I live out of a vow. I am that vow. It's not something I'm obeying. I am that. But it's how it looks. I'm not sure how it is. Do you know? No. Yes, sir.
Shanji Mbang, what's the benefit to the student of having the rug consistently pulled out from underneath them?
Because without that situation happening, using that as an image, without that situation happening, you will continue to reinforce the self-centeredness in terms of one of the aspects of the seventh consciousness. Usually pride, that's the one that's the hardest to see, is because pride can't see itself. It's too shiny, the puffed up part of the self. And one of the ways that's kept going is a shame. The feeling that I can't be full of myself. I'm so sad that I'm such a failure. So that's the other end of shame. Several people are dealing with that on one level or another. Some people have so much pride that if you were to meet them, talk to them, you wouldn't think they were egocentric or self-centered at all. It's that powerful. They can seem very, very humble and very soft and kind and sweet. I know several of them. When I say that, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm not accusing you, I'm just saying that you have that to work for and work with, and without a teacher, you can go the rest of your life looking like a kind, loving, compassionate person. There's no such thing as that. And if you think there is, you'll continue to swindle yourself and others out of your actual life. Don't miss your life, find out who you are. Don't settle for your beliefs, your opinions, your judgments. Don't settle for anything I say. You find out. You sit down, hold still, and look at spinning in the mind until you fundamentally see that there is no solid being there. More?
Sean Jim Bowling, is there a point that it becomes too much of pulling the rug out?
Yeah, if I'm working with someone and they get upset with me and can't see what I'm doing as a teaching and just say, I think you're mean or you're crazy or, and they leave, and that doesn't mean I did anything wrong. I can't do anything right. There's no way I can do it. I can't do it so it satisfies somebody so they don't react. That doesn't mean they did something wrong. It just means that how they saw it was how it was intended from this point of view. And talking about what Sean Jian or Ian Long rather is saying about intention. It's just the intention to see, the intention to teach, intention to see the truth, intention to save all beings, intention to put you and your awakening before me, before anything. Doesn't matter if I die. I don't know how else to say it on this. I want you to see what this is. Even though there is no other, everything is empty of other and full of what it is. And what is it full of? The Buddha, or awakened. Everything is awake. More about that if you have it. You can go right down to deep trench. No more? Okay. Yushin.
What is teaching the outrageous teachings if there is no self in the teacher? Bowing.
You're going to have to ask it again because I'm not tracking what it is you want to know. What do you want to know?
Where does the outrageous teaching come from?
It comes from the projection of people on someone who is trying to point out the truth to them. And their bullshit neurosis or ego or self-centeredness or pride is in the way of that. But the teacher, through his or her ultimate compassion, is willing to poke at them and see if they can't help them see the truth. So to the teacher, it's not outrageous at all. It's just, you want to know what a fish is? Here's a fish. It's that simple. And what is outrageous is the person gets offended by seeing the fish. That's not what I asked for. But then they throw the fish away, or they run away, or they go into the marketplace and tell everyone what a crazy person that teacher is. And are they? Probably they are. They're probably out of their mind. So it's outrageous. The projection onto the teacher is what's outrageous. He or she is not outrageous. They're ordinary. Tamoge Shepa is a Tibetan word for that. Yes.
Bowing, is it possible to receive teaching immediately? Or
Yes.
is it more of a process?
Yeah, it can happen all kinds of ways. It can happen. There can be a direct pointing right in front of you.
Bowing, can our consciousness hear the direct pointing but yet not be aware of it?
Could sideline it or laminate it with some kind of presumption or opinion about what it is.
Bowing, can we have an intention to receive and
Yes,
partially receive?
yes, you have to start somewhere. We start with, I intend to receive these teachings from this teacher no matter what. We've talked about that many times, no matter what. Because if you have conditions or qualifications, then It's not a spiritual path. It might be a highfalutin form of the mundane path. The spiritual path has to be, this doesn't mean you're giving permission to the teacher to abuse you. This is it's a very, as they say, what's the word, fine line in that area. It isn't even a line. It's just that you'll know right here if you're talking to a charlatan who's trying to get your money, get control of you, or get a group of cult leaders to follow them. If that teacher needs or wants anything, then that should be a warning. That being said, it doesn't mean that the teacher won't demand things of you. Won't ask you for things that you don't really want to give up. That's a possibility. So it's up to your intelligence. You need to trust your own mind stream. And one of the ways you can work with that is to train your mind stream so you can't be fooled by anyone. Takes a lot of work. Seems to take lifetimes. But if you're in this lifetime, you're listening to this old man, then there's a possibility you're ready to hear this. But it's very, very difficult to go beyond the preconceptions, the judgments, the opinions that protect the ego and make us feel like we're doing right, and well, at least we're doing this, at least we're doing that. You know what it's like. You talk to me every day. Unyo, who's still in rehab, but it's on the screen, and she knows what it's like. She lives with me. Ask her what this is like. Not very comfortable.
Jixin Bowing. Does outrageous teaching happen when there is an opening in the student? Bowing.
No, it happens when they're shut down. When they're shut off, they're closed off, and that's when it becomes outrageous. When there's an opening, then there's someone who's listening, and you're able to say to them something very directly about the nature of their consciousness or the nature of their activity or how they're functioning. When there's some kind of opening happening, then they might be receptive. And that's, more often than not, that's how it is with most people. People are receiving. You wouldn't be here even listening to me if you didn't have some idea of trying to receive what was being said here. I don't see any really completely new faces here. I'm not saying there aren't some, but most people have been listening to this, or some for many years. People I've not even met face to face. What the hell are you doing back here? What's this about for you? Must be something happening here. But it's not because I'm being outrageous with everybody. I'm just saying you get close, as the old saying in the Tibetan saying, you get too, with the functioning with the teacher or the guru, you get too close to the teacher, you get burned. In other words, you get too far away, you don't get enough heat. So people want to be close enough to get the teaching, get a little bit of warmth, you could say, to use that metaphor, and not so close that ego starts to get scorched. Sir.
Shokabang, it seems like you can point out a student's pride for a long time, but at some point, it seems like you can point it out so directly that the student might leave.
Yes, that's true.
What is the penetration of that pride? Or what is it to receive that pride that is different, or that teaching that is different than the occasional poke at pride?
I'm not sure what you want to know. I'm trying to track you, but I need a straight question. Otherwise, I have to give a talk on a different topic.
Shokabang, are we as students able to see or receive our pride without that super direct pointing out by the teacher?
I can't speculate too much on that. I would say I certainly would not be here if it weren't for Kobun, for my interaction, short interaction. I only had one Dokusan with him, and he asked for it. But I would not be presuming to be a teacher if he hadn't struck me, and just try to hit me right in the kneecaps of my ego. I could feel it, and I felt it, and when I would think about it, it would start to hurt, so I would just ignore it, look away. I went into a 2-month-long solitary retreat, so I wouldn't have to think about it. It worked, until I got out of the retreat. Retreats are used for lots of different. Is that Elia?
Yes.
What do you want?
What's Rudy?
So I could take maybe another 1 or 2 questions. Please, one, yes.
Dodo bowing.
Who spoke up online?
Dodo bowing.
Go ahead.
If we're receiving a lot of intensity or difficulty from the teacher, is that an indication of the student being shut down? Bowing.
I wouldn't set up a standard for it, but there's something to be looked at there, for sure. More about that?
Dodo bowing. There's not a direct question coming up yet around that. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, well, I hesitate to go in and say, to respond to a question like that and say, yes, that's an indication. You know, I don't even think. I'm not sitting around thinking about who's shut down and who's not. To me, you all look like Buddhas. As I think it was Suzuki Roshi once said in the 1960s, everybody looks like a Buddha until they open their mouth. It goes for you too. Choo-choo.
Choo-choo bowing. It looks like I am falling deeper and deeper asleep, and it feels like a shame that I can sit here and listen to you and yet look like I'm covering up more and more.
It's just awareness. Don't worry about it. Keep coming here. Continue to come to the wall. Don't be concerned with outcomes. If you want to be concerned about anything, be concerned with outflows, what's coming out of your mouth and what is showing up in your mind stream as a reaction, agreement, or ignoring whatever's showing up in your life or your mind stream. Awareness, always awareness. If it's about getting somewhere, you just go in circles. And it's just called, that's why it's called samsara, it's a circle. Just look at whatever arises and don't add, subtract, or divide. Is there a question on Zoom, especially concerning the nature of this talk, outrageous teaching? Anyone have a question? Sean Baxter, don't you have a question?
Sean Bowing. Not at this time, no questions.
Very good. Naveed, I want you to ask Sean's question for him.
Navi Bowing. I was wondering what happens to Naropa when he's stuck in the face with the sandal and he becomes enlightened. What happens to him at that moment?
So, I don't know. I think it's a story that kind of helps us realize that maybe the teacher is going to be a little bit intense at times. But you have to remember that Naropa hung out with Tilopa for, I think, 12 years or something like that. And probably Tilopa was just exhausted with trying to teach this dumbass. So he probably just, wake up kind of thing. But what happened to Naropa when he was struck, it's hard to say that's the teaching part of it. But whatever happened beyond that, he probably went back into passion, aggression, and ignorance and something like that. I don't know. Didn't he found the Kagyu lineage or something? I guess he did something. So, it's hard to speculate. It'd be fun to do that. Why don't you write a story on that? Saying what could have happened to Naropa after he was struck by the sandal. Good. I would be interested. You could write it in Farsi, and then we could all learn Farsi so we could read it. Okay, enough.
Thank you, Sukuzen.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we can conclude. Thank you so much, my friends, for joining us and receiving these words.
I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.